Hey people, it's Makeda Voletta. I am live on my IG page waiting for you guys to come on. So, in case you're unfamiliar with me, my name is Makeda Voletta. I have a background in exercise and sports science, nutrition science. I'm a trainer, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a lot of things. Have committed my life to studying all the ways we can take our body to its highest level. Okay, so some of you know that, but some of you may not because you may be new to me. And I will be saving this video and reposting it to my YouTube page. So in the past, I've spoken a little bit about my background. Some of you may have heard it before, some of you may have not. So for those of you who have, I'm sorry, because I have to, it all cycles into what I'm about to talk about. Even me calling myself the body scientist, right? And I tell you that I have a background in exercise and sports science and nutrition science, right? So with that, it's a lot of learning how the body works in terms of what the body's doing, what the body's capable of doing, how that, affects the function. And same thing with eating, what you're consuming, because nutrition is the building blocks for everything, right? But prior to getting into that, I was a biotechnology major. And when I first went to college, it was my goal to get a PhD in biotechnology. I wanted to be a research scientist and I wanted to research cures for genetic diseases. Okay. That was what I was thinking when I was in high school. I remember 1999 reading this book called The Biotech Century. And it was all about biotechnology. Biotechnology is all this genetic engineering, So I was very much into genetics and all that. Microbes, which is if you watch my work, you see I talk a lot about microbiomes. I've been talking about microbiomes and the importance of having a lot of good bacteria in your gut and also your skin, in the vaginal canal. I've been talking about that for 20 years now, right? But I've been aware of that since the 90s when I learned about it in my 10th grade biology class in New York City Public School, okay? And then it became even more evident when I took microbiology, all right? And I really understood microbes, which is something that's also extremely important when it comes to your health. Dictates a lot of things, whether or not you're going to be obese, how your metabolism is, whether or not you're diabetic, whether or not you're addicted to sugar, cancer, all of that. In fact, your susceptibility to every sort of infectious disease that exists, okay? How your immune system functions. Microbiomes are critical. So I go to great lengths to protect my microbiome, even on my skin. What I put on my skin is serious. I will absolutely not use artificial antibacterial soaps and antibacterial sprays like the Purells. It completely destroys your microbiome. Okay, taking antibiotics, they're natural antibacterial agents that can be used that actually kill the bad bacteria and feed and support the good bacteria. That's okay. But the commercial antibacterial agents that kill all of the bacteria is a bad thing. I'm not going to get super into that right now because that's not what this video is about, but it all ties together. But if you want to know more about that, which if you don't know, you should know, you need to know, okay? Check out my other videos on it because I've done several videos talking about microbiomes, right? So, that plays a huge role. But then with nutrition, it's like everything goes back to nutrition, okay? It is so important. And when it comes to your health, what you don't know can hurt you, okay? For sure, all right? And, so now that I am in a graduate program for medical cannabis science, right? And I will say that, there's a lot of people who talk about college degrees and higher education as if it's not worth it. And, the thing that I say, or as if they're trying to indoctrinate you, which a lot of times they are. But it's important, when you're engaging in higher education, whether it is at a university or not at a university, that you have good research skills, good critical thinking skills, right? But it's also important to have a good background, all right? So now, I have an extensive background in biochemistry. When I was in my first graduate program at Columbia University in applied physiology and nutrition, that was almost 20 years ago now when I entered that program in 2003. I took biochemistry in the undergraduate level, but then I also had to take nutritional biochemistry. And I remember the professor that taught us biochemistry also taught biochemistry to the medical students. So he used to tell us what they didn't know, like if a woman goes to the GYN on a day when her folate levels are low and she gets a pap smear, she could have an abnormal pap smear. Because the doctors don't know anything about nutrition and the role that plays, when they see a woman with an abnormal pap smear, a lot of times they automatically want to give her a biopsy, which is very invasive and can cause other issues further in life. And, they'll want to give her a biopsy to make sure she doesn't have cervical cancer, when really that woman might need to just go put folate in her diet, okay, and come back in 6 months and do it again. Because just because you have abnormal cells doesn't mean that you have cancer. Folate is necessary for the division of DNA, okay, in the cells. When cells replicate and the DNA has to be replicated, folate is essential for that. If your folate is low, the cells will replicate in a mutated way. So all the GYN knows is that the cells are abnormal. So it could be cancer, but it might not be. It might be a nutritional deficiency, right? And so I remember also being on the train in New York and studying my biochemistry, and there was a pharmacist sitting next to me who thought that I was in pharmacy school because he saw the biochemistry I was doing. And so pharmacists, medical students, and nutrition students all study biochemistry, right? But we study it from a different angle. So now that I'm in, this graduate program, medical cannabis science, which is interesting because the program, you don't have to have a science background to be in the program. Although I feel, and they really try their best to teach it in a way that's accessible to people who don't have a science background. And the thing I say about that is I don't know what it's like for the people who don't have a science background, because I do. I think that without a science background it might be a little tough. I also think that, without a science background, you may not be able to dig as deep, right? Because the years of what I've learned and been studying. So for me, I didn't just get the degrees and say, oh, I have a degree in exercise science and nutrition science. I don't need to study anything else. I don't need to read nothing else. I don't need to learn anything else. I never did that. This whole time, I've been constantly learning, studying, reading things from the right people, listening to research, okay, constantly. And every practitioner should do that. A lot of them don't. A lot of them, they just get whatever license or, degree and they're done with that, right? But it's really an ongoing thing. But also you have to have critical thinking skills, because there are things that I realized that I learned because first of all, graduate school is about doing research. Like, especially in masters, I would say a lot of it is digging up research and compiling research, right? And so this is the reason why when I was in my first graduate program and I was in my early 20s, and I knew very smart people who were vegans, and to me it didn't make sense, but I didn't express an opinion because some people that I really respected, they were very smart people, they were vegans, and so I thought that doesn't make sense to me, but maybe they know something I don't know. But because I take my health very seriously, not for my clients, but also for myself, right? For myself. And I remember in my family and my loved ones, I remember when I was in college and I was studying the things I was studying, in exercise science and nutrition science, because they're both equally important. Because you could eat good all day, but if you don't do shit with your body and you don't have any strength, that affects how you age and your longevity as well, right? So they're both important. I don't like when people say one is more important than the other. No, they're both important. It's like when people try to say spiritual is more important than physical because we're not our bodies. No, they're both important. To me, the physical is just as important as the spiritual. I don't place one above the other, period, right? So the thing is that, I remember thinking when I was in college that the things that I was learning then, right? I remember thinking this is information that I can use to help myself and my family for the rest of my life. And I remember thinking that. I never regretted getting the degree I got. And mind you, I have an obsession at looking at degrees because they're very specific. Okay, they're very specific. Somebody with a degree in physical education is not the same thing as exercise and sports science. Somebody with a degree in kinesiology is not the same thing as exercise and sports science with a concentration in strength and conditioning. Somebody with a degree in nutrition, that's not the same thing as understanding sports nutrition. Okay, so there are intricacies within it all, and specialties, and the types of classes that was in your curriculum to prepare you for what you did. It makes a difference, right? So they're not all the same. But also, in a master's graduate level, you're looking at research. So I remember back then looking at research about veganism, listening to people who, talked about vegans live longer and making all these claims. And the Layla Africas and the Sabis, who I think both of those dudes are complete frauds, and I do not respect either one of them at all. Okay, I have a video I did a few years ago talking about how Sabi was a fraud, and I do not call him doctor because he's not he's not a Bush doctor, he's not a Western, he ain't, no, okay? That's a whole nother conversation, and I've done a video about that. I may need to do it again. But if anybody follows my work and sees the things that I talk about, you'll understand why, okay? You understand why? Because a lot of people, especially so-called black people, throw on a dashiki and call themselves something Africa, and all of a sudden all the Afrocentric black people in America start following that shit. But if you ever been around an African, they're not eating like that. And they're living long, a lot of them, long and strong. And they're eating every part of the damn animal. They drink milk too. They eat pork too, all that, okay? So, getting back to it, right? Being in that graduate program and having access to the best research and actually digging up the research and then using my critical thinking skills, right? I never came to the conclusion that being a vegan was a good thing to do. I don't care what health problem you have. I don't care. Not for cancer, not for detoxing, because actually there's a lot of foods that are important for our body to naturally detox, and all of those things are in animal foods, okay? A lot of those things are in animal foods, all right? So, now I don't care what the issue is. I would never recommend that. Now, as a nutritionist and as somebody who is looking at, the most beneficial ways, okay? The most efficient ways to get certain nutrients, the most efficient ways to train your body in a certain way that's going to translate into physical performance and not just a look. Because some people could work out for a look, but when it comes time to run, when it comes time to jump, when it comes time to have agility, you don't have it. You know what I'm saying? When it comes time to lift up something heavy, you can't do it. So who needs to look if you don't have any function, right? So you want to do, as a strength and conditioning coach, I am trained to look at the most efficient exercises to work your glutes, to work your hamstrings, to work. That's what we do. And there's a science behind that as well, periodization methods and all of that, right? So I'm saying that to say that, this whole vegan thing, it's like over the years as I've stayed true to the science and true to researching and true to working with clients, okay, I've known so many people that have wrecked their health on this plant-based diet for years. And some people may claim that they feel great, and then they get to year 10 or 15, if they even make it that long, and they have all these problems, right? Now, what I do is rooted in traditional things, traditional methods. I don't believe in technology food. I don't believe in using technology to alter foods. Okay, I told you I have a background in biotechnology as well. And so all of these things are coming together in the cannabis space, right? Because the same philosophy that I have with everything else, like when it comes to food, I like to look at traditional foods, traditional ways of preparing foods, healthy, long-living populations. What did they eat? How did they eat it? How did they prepare those things? Okay, like you have Ethiopians eating raw beef. A lot of people might think, oh, you can't eat raw beef. Well, there's cultures who do. They do in Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? Why you have to soak your beans and your grains. Why you have to, fermentation, all of those things. All right, all of those things. So when it comes to, and so I don't believe in like trying to put vitamin D in orange juice, for example. You were vegan for 6 straight years and it wrecked your gut. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but I know so many people. There's so many people who I've had to revive, in my practice, had to revive back into good health because they spent all these years being a vegan. And that's why I do not respect the people who are putting that propaganda out there. Because to the people who choose to become a vegan, they're usually doing it because they feel like, oh, I want to be healthy. So if you spend years of your life doing what you think is healthy, and it's not, that's a lot of damage that could be done that could have been prevented. It's putting you, you know what I'm saying? Like, I never wanted to have that blood on my hands. I never wanted to be responsible for making somebody worse when they were coming to me to get better, right? And again, a lot of people don't have critical thinking skills, and they don't have, you know, like, I'm not going to say you always have to have a science background. You don't. If you really stay rooted in real traditional practices and not new pseudo made up shit, like real traditional practices, then you don't need the science background. Okay? So the thing is, you know, the science, for me, the science background helps to just confirm these traditional things, right? So, with cannabis, you know, okay, so people put vitamin D in orange juice, right? And that's no good, okay? Because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, and vitamin D is high in foods that are high in fat, like liver, cod liver oil, butter, eggs, you know, raw dairy, cheeses. All those things are high in fat, but they're also high in vitamin A. Vitamin A and vitamin D go together. For every unit of vitamin D, you need a unit of vitamin A. You also need the right unit of fats because it's fat soluble. So if you're taking artificial vitamin D and putting it in fortified orange juice, putting it in orange juice, well, orange juice is a bunch of sugar, there's no fat in it. It's a fake vitamin D, there's no vitamin A. That's not good. The way your body metabolizes that, you're messing with nature. And nature is far, no matter how much Western science we can study nature all we want, we will never understand the great mystery. We will never understand it. So I don't believe in messing with the balances and altering the balances that nature put into place. I really don't. Meaning, you know, like you can get creatine. Creatine helps with muscle contractions, muscle strength, and muscle power. Creatine naturally occurs in meat and muscle in the flesh of animals, right? So again, like heals like. Eating flesh is good for your flesh, okay? However, when you have athletes who take creatine as a supplement, and they're taking high doses of creatine, way higher than they could ever get from eating food, that becomes a problem. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about. You know, when people start using technology in food and they're doing it in cannabis, where it's like, oh, we'll take these cannabis isolates and we'll take these terpene isolates, and we'll, you know, and these terpene isolates comes from who knows where, I mean, not even be cannabis terpenes, whatever, and we're just going to put it in this product. Then we're going to use this kind of technology to put THC or CBD, which is fat soluble, into a water-based product when it's not water-based. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe in that. Okay. Now, in this program, you know, I'm always researching, but I've been researching a lot and really digging deep a lot, and far beyond what they are teaching us. Okay. Sometimes that can be frustrating because I'm like, I feel like I'm teaching myself a lot. You know what I'm saying? But I guess sometimes too, school is what you make of it, especially on a graduate level. So you're going to have to put in the work and also dig deeper, right? So terpenes, you know, like some of you may or may have not heard of terpenes. And terpenes are these molecules in plants that give it scent, okay? When things smell orangey or citrusy, or when you smell rosemary and garlic, ginger, you know, those are all terpenes that give it the scent. But terpenes are also medicinal. However, I did not really realize, because a lot of times when you take just biochemistry, and even when I took nutritional biochemistry like almost 20 years ago now, like it was so overwhelming. I feel like school was harder back then too. And I was taking several classes, and it was like so overwhelming that I wasn't getting, it wasn't until years later that I really started to get a lot of it. And this is the thing about people who get degrees in certain things. Like you can get a degree in nutrition and you took those biochemistry classes, but you don't really, it's not really in your brain like that. Like so in nutritional biochemistry, you learn like, you know, there's different chemical forms of vitamin A. When people hear the term vitamin A, that's a generic term for the public. Scientifically, there's a lot of different chemical forms of vitamin A, of vitamin D, of vitamin E, like a variety of chemical forms. Some of them are active, some of them are inactive. Some of them are artificial and toxic. Some of them are, you know, there's different points in the metabolism. You also learn where they're stored in the body. You learn what toxicities do, what deficiencies do. And I remember when I learned that, and I was learning that, and you're learning it on a, you know, with actual biochemical equations, the enzymes that are involved, And to me, I remember thinking, what? Like, it was like Greek. It was so hard. And I thought I would never understand it. And over the years, I've continued to just study. And there's a lot of things that I do understand that I can recite, right? And it's given me the years to think critically. So now here I am in this medical cannabis science program, and I'm thinking, okay, terpenes, I didn't realize that they were a lipid, okay, a fat. And people who follow me know I love talking about fats. I love talking about fats in the diet. I love talking about fats on the skin. Fats are my favorite thing to talk about. You don't hear me talk about protein and carbohydrates that much. I'm always talking about fats, okay? Fats are critically important. They're sources of energy, protection. You know, they make everything taste better. But I did not know that terpenes, which are responsible for smell, are also lipids. And that, beta carotene is a lipid. Beta carotene is a terpene. So beta carotene, people always get told, oh, beta carotene is vitamin A in carrots and mangoes. Beta carotene is not actually vitamin A. It's not true vitamin A. True vitamin A is called retinol. This sounds like retina, right? But beta carotene is a precursor of vitamin A, which means it can be turned into vitamin A, okay? The process is very inefficient in the elderly and the young, like babies and like little people, and also people with metabolic issues, right? But in order for beta carotene to be converted into retinol, which is true vitamin A, it needs a lot of saturated fat to make that conversion happen. Lots of it, right? And so I always knew that, which is why I always said, you want to eat, if you want to get more nutrition from your plants, you want to eat bananas and cream, strawberries and cream, berries and cream, peaches and cream. Put lots of butter in your yams. Butter with your spinach, okay? And that's how people ate. That is how people ate. You look at India, they make mango lassis. So they mix yogurt with the fruit. You look at Latin America, they make batidos or licuados, which is fruit and milk, okay? That fat actually helps you to absorb more nutrition from the plant matter. And also the fat and the protein in the cream, in the milk, in the yogurt, in the cheese helps to prevent your blood sugar levels from rising too quickly. And that is the issue with sugar. The disease-causing properties of sugar comes from, people, their blood sugar levels rising too quickly. Which is why, to me, I'm not into sweets. I rarely eat cookies and brownies and cakes. But I do like cheesecake, I have some cheesecake in mine. I do like cheesecake. I like good quality ice cream. But those are like a little sweet for a lot of fat and protein. You know what I'm saying? That's like the only stuff I can stomach. I do like apple pie, but if I'm going to eat it, I have to have ice cream. I cannot eat a cookie or something without some milk or some type of cream or something like that, right? So I learned, like last night I was digging deep because this wasn't in my classes. Maybe it'll be in more advanced classes, okay? Because there are more advanced you'll get into it there. But, I'm just researching terpenes, and I start to realize that terpenes are also lipids, which are fats. And so then, I'm like a mix, and the beta carotene is a terpene. And I'm like, that makes sense because I always knew that you need a lot of fat for it to even turn into retinol. Okay, this is all biochemistry, right? So all of this and then I made videos in the past about our endocannabinoids being made from animal fat. If you haven't seen that, check that out. I did another video on nutrition and cannabis, so check those out because I get more into depth about this fat thing, right? But I always love cannabis, but like I told you, I love fat. So for me to find out, like when I started to find out that like cannabinoids are lipophilic, meaning that they love fat, and that endocannabinoids are not just made from fat. Endocannabinoids are made from arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is an omega-6 fat that only occurs in animals. Okay, it occurs in egg yolks, it occurs in butter, liver, stuff like that, right? Only in animals. And our endocannabinoids, which are the cannabinoids our body makes, are made from that. I did another video on cholesterol in the brain, right? our neurotransmitters, I mean, like the myelin sheath that protects our nerves, our nerves send signals. The myelin sheath that protects those signals and protects that signal transmission. Omega-3 fats, long chain omega-3 fats, so only occur in animals. Our brain is 50% saturated fat, okay? A woman's breast milk is like 50% saturated fat, heavy in the fat, because the baby's brain is rapidly developing. And when people act like breast milk is just good just because, no, it has everything to do with the mother's diet, okay? That also informs the nutritional content, just like drinking milk from a cow that was on a commercial farm eating crap does not have the same nutritional content as the milk from a cow who was outside eating grass in the sun, not being fed a bunch of garbage, okay? Then I learned in this biochemistry, maybe I'm a biochemistry nerd, that there's something called squalene, right? Cholesterol is made from squalene, right? It's a chemical compound. But squalenes are made from terpenes, okay? Terpenes, squalenes, cholesterol. You hear me talk all the time about how important cholesterol is for your hormones, okay? All of our hormones are made from cholesterol. All of our sex hormones and our stress hormones. The estrogen, the testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, the stress hormones and the sex hormones are made from cholesterol. Vitamin D, which is actually a hormone, not a vitamin. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol. Okay, people say it's from the sun. No, even if the sun hits you, you still need adequate cholesterol because it's the UV ray, it's the UV radiation that's interacting with sterol in your blood that creates vitamin D. Okay, vitamin D is made from a cholesterol backbone. And I really feel like vitamin D plays some sort of role in the endocannabinoid system. And I'm starting to want to research. I'm really digging to see. I will be up at night looking through studies, looking to see if vitamin D binds to cannabinoid receptors or vice versa. Because the way that the endocannabinoid system works and the way that cannabinoids bind to these receptors and modulate practically every system in our body, the same thing is true with vitamin D. The same thing is true with vitamin D. And all of them have these cholesterol backbones. They need fat. They're lipophilic. Okay? And not all fats have the same chemistry. So I know I need to write a book because I just see connections that are not being made because everybody is compartmentalized. And that's the thing about being interdisciplinary with your sciences. And being in a program that's pharmacology based, there's a lot of things that's similar to nutrition, because I told you, like, we also have to take biochemistry, and nutrition is also dealing with metabolites and enzymes breaking things down and storing things and changing things and, things binding to receptors that get into the cell. Nutrition is also like that, but nutrition is more like the foundation. It's the building blocks of everything. I felt like from a long time ago, if you really want to understand how the body works, I don't care what kind of practitioner you are, nurse, doctor, yada, yada. There's all kinds of acupuncture. If you really want to understand how the body works on a cellular level, you have got to study nutritional science, period, point blank. That's the backbone of everything. When somebody has this problem and that problem and this is not working right and you're not producing enough of this and you have a thyroid problem and you have a hormone problem and you got this problem, a lot of it is because of your nutrition. You don't have the right backbones in your body for your body to make certain things. You're getting depressed because you don't have the right fats and cholesterol for your body to make certain things. You know what I'm saying? So that's the foundation. And nutrition, these nutrients can also be medicinal. But when you're studying pharmacology, like, drugs they're not the backbone of anything. Okay? They're helping to, they come in to assist to help balance things out. Right? And it's a little bit different way of looking at it, because before I got into this program, there are people I've worked with, coaching them and guiding them with utilizing cannabis medicinally. But as a nutritionist and as a trainer, I've dealt with people with all kinds of physiological and physical issues, okay? There's nothing that is happening to a person's body I don't feel comfortable working with them, okay? I don't care if they're in a wheelchair, they're missing limbs, they have this back problem, this heart problem. When you have a background in exercise physiology, that's what that's about. So I understand, every state. And if there's something I don't understand, I'm going to do some extra research. But when it comes to using cannabis medicinally, I've probably been learning about this for the past 4 years, but heavy for maybe like the past year, okay? And I know so much more now than I even did last year. There are videos I did about cannabis medicine a couple years ago that are not even valid right now because I know so much more, right? But when you're working with people, especially the elderly, okay, because that's one of the places where it can have the most use and application is with the elderly. Because what I said about what I know about exercise and nutrition and how it can help me, but also my family. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to my parents, I'm on them about their health. When I think about people I know that passed, you can't save everybody. You can't save everybody, but I just feel like if I knew some of the things that I knew, then maybe I could have helped the person. Now, sometimes it's hard, especially because when you're trying to do things naturally, it's expensive. There are people who want to say, oh, it's not expensive to eat healthy. It is expensive to eat healthy. It definitely is expensive to eat healthy. There are people, and it wasn't like that when my parents were growing up. I saw people had 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 kids, and they all ate well. They all grew up. They all had children of their own. Because all the stuff that we spend money on now, people had chickens and eggs in the backyard and this, and they hunted a raccoon or a squirrel or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to, because if you're using it medicinally for a serious issue, like somebody that has cancer, you have to use very high doses of things, and that can be very expensive. So I hear a lot of people always talking about, oh, we need to get our own land and have a farm and grow your own food. That's a bit much. You know what I'm saying? To me, I'd rather have relationships with farmers and get quality food from the farmer's market, but I'm not trying to live on a farm and grow all my food. I'm not about that life. That's a lot of work, can't travel, can't do stuff. But I do believe in growing medicinal plants in my house, okay? I always will have aloe, always, okay? Then, people can have rosemary and oregano, thyme, basil. Those are also they're good to cook with, but they're also very medicinal herbs that can be used for different things, okay? But garlic, ginger, you know what I'm saying, as well. You can do steams with those, a lot of things you can do. But growing cannabis plants, and that's not something, I haven't delved into that area. I just have my house plants. I do travel a lot, so I feel like growing cannabis plants is a big commitment. But if I was someone who was more stationary, I definitely would grow cannabis, especially if it was legal in my state. Some places it's not legal, and I understand people don't want to take the risk, but there are a lot of places where it is. I really want my dad, and my parents to grow cannabis plants, because if something happens, you know what I'm saying? If something happens, I have an aunt that had a stroke a couple of months ago. CBD is very useful for people who have survived a stroke. And I haven't suggested it to my aunt because, some people are so old-fashioned. I'm I don't know if she's going to be open to that. But with my parents, they're open to whatever. I'm like their nurse and their doctor. And I'm on everything that goes on with their health. And, what the doctor's telling them and telling them, what to eat and how they exercise. I'm very much on them. And something like that. But to my parents, I'm giving them CBD oil. Okay? Or THC oil, depending on, or a mixture. A mixture of THC and CBD, depending on what's going on. You have the terpenes, which play a huge role as well. It's not just about THC and CBD, it's also the terpenes that are in it. And also what you mix the cannabis with. I always believe in synergy of herbs and synergy of fats. For years, I used to just put shea butter on my skin all the time, right? In the winter, it was all shea butter. In the summer, it was 100% coconut oil. Then maybe in 2016, I realized now I like cocoa butter way better than coconut oil, right? So I would use cocoa butter all summer, shea butter all winter. And then maybe around 2018, I discovered mixing them, okay? And now I mix fats. I mix some cocoa butter, some shea butter, some ghee, some palm oil, some lanolin, some castor oil. To me, them mixed together is way better than any one of them by themselves. And I choose each of those fats for a reason, for the properties that they have, okay? I choose them each for a reason. I'll just randomly, I'm going to put some mango butter in here. I'm going to put some jojoba oil. For what? Just because you heard of those fats and they're supposed to be good? Like, I have a specific reason why I mix those things. And the same thing is true, you know, when it comes to cannabis, there's a lot of things, you know, like when you deal with the terpenes that are complementary of each other, okay? And with any kind of healing plants, like if I feel like I'm getting sick, you know, getting a cold or something, I'm going to drink lots of green tea and echinacea. I think green tea and echinacea are perfect together. They are better together. Just drinking echinacea tea by itself is not as medicinal as combining it with green tea, because of what green tea does in the body and because of what echinacea does in the body. And together they're very complementary, right? And so that's true of a lot of herbs, or every herb, right? So I like the idea of mixing cannabis with certain terpenes, with other plants with certain terpenes, with butter and dairy and, you know, the good quality fats that it needs to be absorbed properly. But not using, you know, technology, because it's interesting. You know, I'm going to do a video on my other page, or maybe I'll do it on this page. There's a lot of degrees, a lot of cannabis degrees right now. And as I learn to start, you know, the companies that I want to start, like, this is making me very business focused, okay? I'm very much a science mind, but I'm also becoming very business focused, because it can be very discouraging because it's so hard to do certain things, especially in the realm of cannabis, but at the same time, a lot of people are doing it. And so I'm like, if they could do it, why can't I? I'm just going to have to get it done. I just have no choice. I have no choice. So there's a lot of cannabis degrees now, okay? I'm in the Master of Science, Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutics at the University of Maryland. But there's also that same program exists at Pacific College of Medicine, or Pacific College, I think, I don't know if it's Oriental Medicine. Pacific College is an online program, same thing, Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutics. Then I think the University of Colorado, one of their campuses, one of their schools of pharmacy has a Medical Cannabis Master's program. Then I saw that Morehouse College, okay, I mean, not Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine has an online Master of Science program, degree in biotechnology with a concentration in medical cannabis science. Now, when I told you how each degree, the title of the degree makes a difference in terms of like what you learn, like my degree, okay, in medical cannabis science and therapeutics is not the same as having a degree in biotechnology with a concentration in medical cannabis science. And the reason why is because, remember I told you at the beginning of the conversation about biotechnology. Biotechnology is very much about genetic engineering and altering things. I don't believe in using nanotechnology and all this and that, okay? No problem to people who want to do it. That's just not my philosophy. I'm more rooted in traditional methods. I don't believe in trying to bypass nature with all this technology because I feel like it backfires on you, right? So the degree at the Morehouse School of Medicine in biotechnology, that is a lot more focused for people who want to get into maybe drug design. Maybe drug design, you know, technology and stuff like that, okay? If somebody wants to get into drug design technology, my graduate program would not be the right program for them. So this is the reason why, like, you know, all programs aren't the same. It's important to look at the program that you're going into and what the curriculum is like, what their research, you know what I'm saying? My program at the University of Maryland is very good for people who also want to be advocates and people who are trying to change laws, because we know that's in the DMV area, and people who are in the DMV area it'd be the people that be trying to change laws, okay? Whereas you have some place like Colorado where they have a long history of cannabis medicine. I mean, so I'm sure like the focuses and the angles could be a little bit different depending on the program that you're in. This is a really good book, okay? The Chi the Cannabis Health Index, okay? There's about 200 chronic diseases in here, right? With the science and protocols of how to use cannabis, because you use it in different ways depending on what you're using it for. Like, if somebody had a brain tumor, putting it even on the scalp, okay, it could be helpful because stuff penetrates in through your skin, into your scalp, gets to your brain very easily. Even headaches. Like when I have headaches, I take cannabis oil and drink it in a tea, but it could also be a massage on the temples, on the scalp, because it gets into the brain, into the head, into inflammation. It kind of depends on why you have a headache. But there's a lot of different ways to administer cannabis medicinally. It could be from, vaginal, anal suppositories. It could be topicals. It could be smoking it. It could be drinking a tea. You know what I'm saying? And all of those are valid routes of administration, including smoking. Smoking weed is not bad for you like people think, okay? And it is a valid route of administration that has its own benefits. So depending on what you're using it for, okay, depends on how, and what you're using it for and what's going on with that person, yada, 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 what the best route of administration is, okay? But the thing I like about this book too is that it also, when I was telling you about how it's good, to combine the cannabis with other medicinal plants because of the terpenes and the other things in those plants, that may be antimicrobial or antibacterial or anti-inflammatory and stuff like that. This book does a great job at also speaking about that, and I've been very impressed with a lot of things that I've seen in this book. And I'll go through some of it on my OnlyFans page, onlyfans.com/thebodyscientist. I will go through a few different health conditions and discuss, the protocols, discuss what this book is saying and my thoughts about it, things I might want to add, stuff like that, okay? And, being as healthy as we can be has always been a challenge. Where do you get pure cannabis? A lot of weed nowadays, so a lot of things in them. Yes, this is true. So where you get pure cannabis depends on where you are, okay? And to me, just like food, I feel like it's going to be really important. And where I think the industry is going and where I think it should go is people having relationships with local farmers, okay? Every state has their own rules and guidelines about, what's allowed and stuff like that. But if you live in a state where you can get tested cannabis, where it's tested for certain things, or if you can have a relationship even with the farmers, which could be difficult. I don't know where you live. It kind of depends on where you live. It's easier in some places than others. And, I will do a lot more speaking about that because that's what I do with food. I drink raw milk and I travel around the U.S. a lot. And, I try to get raw milk wherever I can. There's some places like New Orleans, I've never been able to get it in Louisiana. But I've been able to get it in South Florida, in California, of course. In New York, in Chicago, in Philly, very easy in Philly, in Atlanta. I had a hard time in Houston, but somebody recently told me that they knew someone who got raw milk in Houston. So, some parts of the country it's a lot easier than other places. But I feel like because of the consciousness and awareness in the cannabis industry, there's going to be a lot more people, pushing to get craft products from, local growers and farmers. And it can also support local farmers and people in rural communities, okay? Like, I've never been to, I heard that in Maine, all the cannabis dispensaries are owned by the farmers. The people who grow the cannabis also sell it in their dispensaries. But the thing is, too, even when people grow it, there are people who grow it who, let's say that they grow cannabis, they grow weed, they smoke it, they know that, it helps me to calm down. But then maybe, God forbid, their kid gets diagnosed with cancer. Their kid has a brain tumor or something. And they don't realize that, the real medicinal sides, when you're using it, there are people who use cannabis for serious health conditions like brain tumors and serious aggressive cancers. And some people have a goal of trying to kill the tumor and get rid of the cancer. Or some people have a goal of just making this person feel more comfortable as they transition. It just depends, you know what I'm saying, on what the goal is. Where I get real milk in South Florida, look on realmilk.com. I don't remember the name of the farm, but there's a place that I've gone to in Fort Lauderdale. I've gone there a few times. It's in Fort Lauderdale. But look on realmilk.com, put in your state, and you'll see. So yeah, there are people who might grow it and they don't even know, like, oh, like now somebody in the family has a serious health problem and you can create products. Like, I have a sister who passed away last year from cancer, okay? And, you know, she didn't eat the best, and it's hard to teach people how to eat better, especially when people have habits and they don't want to change. But it's not even like, even if they do want to change, sometimes people's microbiomes are so messed up that it's craving this junk food and their metabolism is off. And also it's expensive. It's about access. You know, sometimes people live in places where they don't really have access to better stuff and it's super expensive and they can't afford it. It's a lot of different barriers, okay? And to me, it's a horrible feeling to feel like I can't help somebody. You know what I'm saying? And then to know, I know a few people, okay? A dear uncle, a dear aunt who also passed away from cancer in the past. My aunt passed away in 2017. Ugh, can't believe that many years have gone by. She passed away the year I moved to Chicago. One of my beloved aunts. And an uncle who passed away 2 years after that, okay, from cancer. Where I just think, I mean, I knew back then that it had cancer, you know, anti-cancer properties, okay? And there are other things that have anti-cancer properties. There are a lot of things that do. And I knew this, but I didn't understand it on the level that I understood it when it came to, you know, using cannabis medicinally. You know what I'm saying? Because when people are dealing with more serious issues, they have to have very specific protocols. And then it's also, if someone's on medications, right? If somebody is on, and the first time I really encountered this was this past summer, okay? Thank you, love. I felt, my dad had a friend, and I never thought that I would start working with so many elderly people, okay? And I remember hearing a conversation between a medical doctor and two pharmacists who actually, the pharmacist graduated from my program that I'm in now, and a medical doctor who was like one of the heads of the program. I remember listening to them on Clubhouse about a year ago this time, having conversations, and they kept talking about the elderly and how if the elderly are using cannabis medicinally, and they just go to a dispensary and they have no idea what they're doing or what they're buying. And the people in the dispensary don't really know either, like how to advise this person based on what's wrong with them, the medications they may be on, because there are interactions with drugs, okay? If somebody's on a lot of medications, that has to be taken into consideration, right? And so, you know, I started working with like some of my dad's friends this summer. Like, it was like, everybody's in pain. And one person told me something, another person told, so I'm recommending things and it's helping them. And then one of my dad's friends, who's a very important man, okay, very, very important, revolutionary, okay, and I remember seeing him in New York and at an event that he did, and he looked great. And I remember thinking, he looks great for his age. But come to find out, he was in so much pain. Like, he didn't look like it. And this is the thing that I've learned as being a trainer and stuff like that. Looks don't tell you everything. Some people do look great, but they're in a lot. You talk to that person, they could tell you, I'm in chronic pain every day. And you would never tell that by looking at them, right? So that was him, and he was telling me he didn't believe in the pharmaceuticals, yada, yada, yada. And at the time, I don't even think he knew about me, you know, me talking about and knowing about cannabis medicine. He was saying he wanted to get exercises from me and stuff like that. But before you can even get exercises, you have to get rid of the pain. You cannot, if your back is in, yes, there are exercises that can help your back if you have back pain or back issues. But if you're in chronic pain all the time, you can't do that. You have to first get that under control so you can get to a place where you can do minor exercises, right? And so when I started to speak to him about cannabis medicine, and then we met up, and I did not follow my normal protocol. I'm really evaluating and assessing somebody. He was being very jokey, and wasn't taking it seriously. You know, he took too much oil, okay? I'm just going to say that. And that was the first time that I saw it. We all know if somebody consumes too much edibles, it can be a problem. I mean, it won't kill you, okay? If you consume too much cannabis edibles, it will not kill you. The most that it will do is make you just feel really paranoid, sometimes really bad. Sometimes you might feel like you're going to die, but you're not. And you go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? It's not a good feeling, though. And especially if you're older. And especially if it's interacting with other medications. But I did not know. Not only did he take too much oil, I didn't know that he was on like 20 medications. Because first he took some, and then he was like, oh, it's not working. And he was joking around. So I put a little bit more in his tea, which not smart by me. That was my mistake. Because I should have told him to wait 2 hours to see, right? So too much too soon, which you don't want to do. And this is one thing to do it with a regular person who doesn't have not a bunch of medications, but when you're dealing with an elderly person and then one who's on the medications, you really have to be careful. But so by the time, put some more in his tea, and he had a drink, okay? We're sitting there eating. He orders a drink with whiskey in it. Another interaction, right? Which may not bother me, but if you also are on medications, because then after that, he pulled out a bag of pills. And I did not know he's about to take like 20 pills. He takes all these medications. And then, his back pain did go away, but later on that day, he felt horrible. Okay? He was super paranoid. He felt horrible. And the experience made him not want to try it again. And I felt so bad because I'm like, I'm so sorry. You definitely took too much. And I did not know that you were going to take all the medications. Like, I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? And it was that day, this is in May of this year, that I really started to dig deeper with understanding, how it's interacting with medications and this and that. Because in the past, the people that I've worked with that have used it, and people don't always ingest it. Sometimes they're using it topically or whatever. But when you're ingesting it, people that I know, that issue never came up. And from that point on, I started to realize, especially coming into this graduate program, because before I used to feel like people like to overly quantify things. Like if there are several herbs people use medicinally, and nobody's testing the hell out of the rosemary oil to see how much rosemary is really, how much of this and that and every other thing is really in here, and trying to calculate everything. So I kind of don't really believe in having to over calculate things and trying to overly quantify things, because people have been using this medicinally for thousands of years, and they didn't have the lab to tell them what percentage of this and what percentage of that, and they still use it. But at the same time, okay, I do see the value in understanding that when you're dealing with people who are on all these pharmaceuticals, or they have very complex, serious health conditions, okay? And so understanding the dosing and the ratios and, which terpenes are being used and how that's interacting with the cannabinoid, it's it is important. And, medicinal cannabis has taken on a whole nother meaning for me, okay? I've used it for things, but it was always acute injuries, that I've had. But people who are using it for chronic, serious health conditions, who may or may not already be on medications, there's a lot that needs to be understood. And I feel like there's a gap, too, with the products that are being made. A lot of the edibles in the dispensaries are made from crappy ingredients. I've made a video about that, too. So if, you have cancer, the last thing you want to do is be taking edibles that have sugar in it. And in the hospital, they give you a bunch of cookies and candy and bread. That's the last thing you need to be eating if you have cancer, because sugar feeds cancer cells. And that's the other thing. When I talked in the beginning of this video about my background and how I used to want to research cures for genetic diseases. Cancer is a genetic disease. Cancer is also something I've studied a lot over the years. And there are many anti-cancer things in food, okay? Even animal foods, okay? Very potent. And so to me, when you're doing anything holistic, it's the sum total of all those things. You can use all the medicinal herbs you want, but your nutrition, your backbone has to be on point. It's the plant and the animals, okay, that work together. The plants and the animals. To me, I always look at the plants as being assistants or assisters. They assist. Plants are not the backbone they're not the building blocks, okay? They're not the building blocks of our body, but they help assist, and they are important. But you cannot eat a bad diet and be eating the wrong fats, and you think you're gonna, just make up for it by taking medicinal plants. No, they're both important. And this is really where I feel like when it comes to getting a doctorate, that's the area of research I'm really interested in. And I don't see any programs like that. And so I'm searching. I'm like, I would love to do something that's combining nutritional biochemistry and cannabis science. To me, there's enough expertise, need for research, and research has already been done for there to be programs like that. Because I was telling you about some of the master's programs. There's a lot of undergraduate programs now too in cannabis biochemistry. I saw another degree in cannabis biology and chemistry. Super interesting. Just because if I was like a housewife, I'd probably get all those degrees just cause. But like but I understand it because like I said, everything I'm learning in this cannabis science is just coming right back around to things I learned in biology, things I learned in nutritional biochemistry, things I learned in organic chemistry, things I learned in physiology, things I learned in microbiology. You know what I'm saying? Genetics, because you have a whole world of nutrigenomics. Nutrients affect your genes. You know, genes can be turned on and off. There are nutrients and toxins and things that bind to our DNA that turn genes on, turn them off, and mutate them. So all of these things that I've been studying over the years are just coming full circle in this cannabis science realm, but I'm learning it also from a pharmacology perspective, which is more about being quantitative so you can reproduce certain things, and I understand the value of it. So, yeah. I know I've been talking for like an hour. I'll be having so much to say. I'll be thinking, I'm going to do this video. I'm going to talk about this stuff. And I'll be feeling like I'm all over the place. But definitely, if you want to dig deeper, definitely join me on my OnlyFans. OnlyFans.com/TheBodyScientist, where I will dig deeper in these topics. And you guys can ask me questions. Also, feel free to subscribe to my Instagram page, because I will be doing some content for subscribers on my Instagram page. Make sure you follow me in both places. If you're on Instagram, be sure to follow me on YouTube as well, because on my YouTube videos, a lot of times I post other videos, other sources underneath my video. So on this video, when I post it on YouTube, I'm going to post some other things for you to look at, especially something from a woman named Mara Gordon, who I discovered yesterday, who's amazing. Okay, you must know this woman. So I'm going to post some of her work below. If you're on YouTube and you don't follow me on Instagram, be sure to follow me on Instagram, because I do post things on Instagram that I don't post on YouTube, like photos and books and stuff like that. I'm always available for private consultations, sessions, stuff like that. I work with people from a distance, but I'm in between New York and Chicago. I frequent DC a lot, New Orleans every now and then, South Florida every now and then. I'll be moving around, but mostly in New York and Chicago. But I do travel. I'll be in Toronto next week. I'm always available to work with people wherever I'm at, but I also work with people from a distance. So feel free to reach out. And yeah, whatever I didn't say in this video, I have to say in the next, because I'll be having so much to say, which is really why I need to just get busy on my books. But yeah, I'm just going to say if you don't know that much about cannabis medicine, I urge you to learn. And definitely, I'll be educating. So I've done videos in the past. I will continue to do videos. So, I will continue to educate, because you never know, when you may need to be a caregiver for yourself, for your family, prevent things, be able to help them. You know what I'm saying? Again, we can't save everybody, but I do care about my family. And I do feel bad that maybe I didn't know the things I knew. When I could say my sister was dealing with her cancer, but it can be complicated, because sometimes you can't easily get things to people, and the compliance. There's a lot of things that goes into it, and that's also why cannabis needs to be descheduled completely. Okay, like all of us, if you're aware, you need to vote or just be aware that we want it to be descheduled, so that way, like if I have a good quality cannabis infused coconut oil or ghee or whatever product, I can send it to whoever. And it needs to be a global thing. I'm going to be talking about this on my other pages. And I probably should talk about it here too. Because there's a lot of countries in the world who are starting to legalize it, start medical programs. Every country has different laws, or looks different, just like it does in every state in America. But if you're thinking about using it medicinally, like I use it medicinally, and I don't even use it for a chronic problem, but I like to have my cannabis oil on me wherever I go, just in case you never know what's going to go down. Then I also love to have cannabis flower on me anywhere I go, just because I never know what's going to go down, okay? Like if someone's going to stress me the fuck out, okay, I'm going to have to smoke a blunt. If I'm on my cycle, I need to smoke when I'm on my cycle. That is the thing that helps me with the uncomfortable feeling I feel on my cycle, okay? So, you know, like it's just different things, right? So, and then there's the tinctures as well, right? So, but like if somebody has a chronic issue, like there are people who are able to function every day because they're using cannabis medicinally. People who couldn't walk, people who are in wheelchairs, people who are in chronic pain, even children, okay? And there are people who are working with children and giving them THC. And actually, the younger you are, the higher the dose you need. For kids that have serious cancers and certain health problems. And I'm just thinking about, when I talk about cancer, cancer is, I think it's tied. Last I checked, it was tied with heart disease for #1 killer of all Americans. And I'm thinking of all the people I know that have died of cancer, okay? My sister last year, my aunt in 2017, and my aunt, she had a grandson, okay, in-law, or like a grandson who he died of cancer. This might have been, I don't even know how many years ago now. This could have been 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Damn, he would have been so much older. But he had a brain tumor and he died very quickly. I have a dear friend of mine who lost his daughter to cancer. I'm just thinking about all these people, old and young. Cancer is super fucking common, okay? And I believe in the prevention, you know? That's why I am very picky about what I eat. I don't use microwaves. I'm not cooking out of Teflon. I'm not putting blade plugins in my house. I'm not putting chemical bullshit on my skin. You know what I'm saying? All those things add up. Yeah, cannabis hemp can be made into ethanol, can be made into fuel. Yep. Hemp can be made into everything. Hemp can be made into, we can make paper out of it, we can make shoes out of it, cars out of it, gas for cars out of it, clothes, like everything. And we wouldn't have to have this issue with deforestation, cutting down all these damn trees. You know what I'm saying? Which is, this is a whole other topic, but that's one of the things I noticed when I was in Senegal. I'm like, there are no trees. And every time I see video of somebody in Nigeria or Ghana or some other West African country, I do not see enough trees. It doesn't look lush. It doesn't look lush like how it looks in Costa Rica. Ever been to Costa Rica? That shit is lush. Or how it looks in parts of Mexico, parts of Colombia, okay, parts of Cuba, all right? Like, parts of North America, the East Coast, okay, is more lush than what I see when I was in Africa, or when I see videos of West Africa. And so I'm like, I know I'm not tripping because I noticed that, because I like to be places with a lot of beautiful, strong trees. Where I live in Chicago is like that. That's important to me. Where I'm from in New York is like that. That's important to me, right? And I mean, even New York having Central Park, or we have all these parks have densely populated with trees and stuff. Like, I can tell the difference in the air quality and stuff. And so I started last night looking it up. I found so many articles about deforestation in West Africa. It's a huge problem, huge, huge, huge problem. But before I looked it up, I could see it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's too much cutting down of trees to make things that hemp could be, you know, used to make, and we wouldn't have all these problems on the planet. It can literally save the world, okay? Literally save the world. You know, and cannabis can be used for people who are addicted to stuff. Like somebody's coming off of, if they're addicted to opioids or they're addicted to, they're alcoholic, CBD is what can be used to, CBD protocol can be help get people to recover from addictions. A lot of times people think, oh, I was an addict, I can't touch cannabis. No, you can, though. And it can actually help you overcome addictions. But if you have other serious health problems, like I know people with serious health problems and nothing is helping them, and cannabis could help them, but they don't want to mess with it because they have addiction problems. It's like when you're using cannabis medicinally and it's being properly dosed, it's not going to make you high and, you know, it's not addictive and all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of misconceptions. And there are people out there doing the work, educating, and I'm just going to continue to do that because that is the path that I'm called on to be combined with everything else I do. I'm also a birth worker. There are many applications of cannabis in childbirth. Yeah, big ups to Maryland legalizing adult use, exactly. There are applications with sexual health, which I'm going to do a video about that. You know, I did do a video from my other page called Cannabis Orgasms, but I'm going to do a video of how it pertains, you know, to sexual health and all of that. So yeah. So I recommended that book. Another book that I would highly recommend that everybody take a look at if you're serious about your health is Nourishing Fats, Why We Need Animal Fats for Health and Happiness by Sally Fallon. This is the book that first made me aware of the fact that our endocannabinoids are made from animal fats, which is arachidonic acid. There's a whole chapter on that. And I hadn't realized that before. And then I'm listening to, I'm not going to say no names because I don't want to burn no bridges. I'm just going to have to do it in my books. But I remember listening to a certain doctor, medical doctor, who practices cannabis medicine. And she's an elder, and she works with very sick, chronically ill patients, getting them off of all the medications and onto cannabis. And she speaks down so much on animal fats and animal foods, and everything is to be plant-based. And I'm like, last year this time, I couldn't break it down the way I could. But I'm like, no. Our endocannabinoids are made from animal fats. Okay, period, point blank. So you might have an endocannabinoid problem because you're not eating the right kinds of fats. All right? But lastly, the thing I was saying was about it being like a worldwide issue. This cannabis thing is like, if somebody is using cannabis for a chronic condition and they need to travel, so now they can't travel with it. So now when they go out the country, they have to be in agonizing pain. That's going to make somebody not want to travel. So if it's legit medicine, then it needs to be a global thing. And we need to be able to travel with it. Because even right now, you can't go from Toronto to New York, even though it might be legal in both places. Or from, you know, from wherever in Canada to Cali. Even though it's legal in Cali and it's legal in Canada, it's not legal to fly with it. Now, how stupid is that? And that's what I'm saying. Why it needs to be descheduled. Okay? Because there are people, a lot of people think the medicinal thing is a joke. But there are plenty of people with chronic health conditions who are using it, and it's helping to save their lives, save their quality of life. And as I said, I will go into a lot of that more in depth on my OnlyFans page. And of course, I'll do videos here and there about certain things, and I have done videos about certain things. But I'm going to go really in depth on the medicinal applications on the other side. Okay? So I hope you guys learned something from this. If you did, please like the video. Please share it. Please follow me on YouTube. Please follow me on Instagram. I don't get paid for things I be posting. That's the reason why I created my membership on Instagram and all of that. But I hope you guys have a good day. I need to go eat and be well. Bye.